This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening? Who are the newsmakers? What's in store for the future? The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. and Ms. White Plains, Westchester, and the world, and all you developers out now. You may want to listen to this show carefully. And I'm John Bailey with, of course, the Dean of the White Plains School of Journalism, with me since the inception of the show 19 years ago. Right. The nativity of the show, I guess it would be. And he has the headlines.
Now, the headlines for the White Plains Week of May 10th, 2019. Common Council closes 52 North Broadway hearing to consider environmental impact statement and special permit in July. Stewart Place residents vent anger at the council charging done deal. Mayor says he's neutral. County Executive George Latimer strikes back, saying Playland is safe. Touts string of community events and concerts as Playland opens this weekend. City expands income eligibility for its affordable housing units, offers developers ability to buy out their affordable housing obligation. City approves 1133 Westchester Avenue, flats, apartments, and a new era of mixed use begins, maybe. The school district election is coming up on May 21st. Superintendent of Schools champions budget conservative spending and building reserve for future. League of Women Voters endorses city budget. Department of Public Works resurfaces 25 miles of road compared to just 6 miles in last fiscal year with recycling concrete technology. Interactive video games appear favored for approval at downtown malls.
Thank you, Jim. And right now we go to the White Plains Week newsreel, a video newsreel March of Time for May 10th, 2019, and it was just like old times at the Common Council, Jim. At the meeting last Monday night, a packed house, and it's all because of 52 North Broadway. You were there. Take us through it.
Well, first of all, you had residents from Stewart Place speaking, and they were all against the proposal. They're talking about putting 433 apartment units on the Good Council property. And there are environmental issues. There is a part of the property that has been capped because of environmental circumstances. And supposedly there's a break in the cap, and I would assume that that has to be repaired. And there was a speaker, I think his last name was Janes, and he pointed out the effect of tenants in 10 Stewart Place View being impacted.
Yeah, here's a look at that view study.
Yeah, it's a...
There you go.
It's a huge complex. 433 apartments is a lot of apartments.
Right, and the presenter pointed out that it gives you a wall from the view that they have now from Stewart Place. and also that they're very long, but it was a very dramatic presentation, to say the least, and it was commissioned by the Stewart Place folks because they had requested something like this, but none was done. And that's why that was done. And then there were speakers, and here's some of them right there that were all against it. And the gentleman in the lower left who heads up a condominium complex on Stewart Place pointed out that they did not know exactly how the place was going to be powered, whether it was gas, natural gas, or oil, or whatever, and he felt that should be included, and nobody's thought of this since that moratorium has been put together. Well, maybe somebody has thought of it.
Well, they could also have electric power.
That's true, too, but that costs you a fortune.
Well, they can...
Anybody who has electric heat will tell you you don't want it. But
put in solar panels, it'll help.
That's true. Well, the building could do that too.
That's right.
That's right, which they should really think about doing. They may be. But be that as it may, this is now an issue that has to really be addressed, perhaps. But the mayor said that it's up to them what power they pick, and they have many options. And he's right about that. Yeah. So you can't tell them what to do. They have to figure out what to do, but they might tell us. And another thing about this whole situation is they are going to review the FEIS, which they now have about 6 weeks to complete, to get it in by July, when they're going to review it. And also, then they will take up the actual site plan permit. Whether or not they'll vote remains to be seen.
And the remainder of the public hearing that does not relate to the environmental impact statement is still open.
The remainder, don't they have 30 days to comment?
No. That's for the EIS. They have...
Whatever EIS it is, right?
Yeah. My understanding of what they said was that the ability for people to comment on the project itself, forgetting about specifically the environmental aspects, that part of the hearing remains open so that people can comment.
Well, it's beginning to look a lot like FASNY. Any striking similarities here? It's been going on 3.5 years. But they have 5 years to go on that. Anything else we want to do with the North Broadway? They really leveled some nasty statements about the council not representing the residents and the residents' interests, and the city placing progress ahead of building apartments on a toxic website. I thought that put it in a nutshell, right? But all those depends who's going to pay for that. When the city capped the dump, it cost us $11 million. That is a chunk of change. And the DEC still hasn't ruled on what to do, I believe. So we await that. Wait a lot of things. Now, over to the McCallion building and also Playland, where we have George Latimer, the county executive, who on Monday, on one of the beautiful days of the week, came back and said that Playland is safe. He announced a number of events that are going to be going on this summer to attract more attendance than last year, which was a very rainy summer. And weather is what the county needs. If they could buy the weather, they would, because that's what you need to get people out there. Now, they also introduced the television commercial. Let's take that.
There's a place nearby in Westchester County where the laughs never stop, where the rides make you scream with joy, and where the cotton candy tastes sweeter. A place where kids of all ages and mom and dad all have fun. Come to Playland and ride for rides, food, games, music, and more. This place was made for fun. Visit playlandpark.org to see our fun calendar of events.
And there you have it. You should be seeing that on your local screens. And I thought it was a very good commercial, produced a good vibe. Now, one thing that you should know is the prices are approximately in line with last year. For residents, you can get ride wristbands, ride all day, for $25 a person, and $30 if you're a non-resident. For a junior, a child, 48 inches tall was the limit, $15 to ride all day, and non-resident, $20. If you do only want to spectate, you can get in free. Or a non-resident, you would have to pay $10, which is a little better than last year. The parking, however, has gone up. It's $10 weekdays and weekends, and $15 on holidays. And for us senior citizens, it's only $5, right? What a break. That's really good. And so there you have it. It opens on Saturday, 12 noon, and let's hope they have good weather. And as far as I know, there's no real incentives for going on open day, except to see it in action. And he also conducted a tour on Thursday, which I could not go on, pointing out the safety of the food preparation. And the county claims they have adjusted all the problems exposed by a study made by Standard Amusements, and that clock is ticking on that agreement. May 28th is when the severance takes effect. And now, back to the Common Council meeting. They passed legislation creating more eligibility for affordable housing. And that's the press release that was put out in great detail, and I commend Karen Pasquale and the city for putting out this press release, which explained a rather complex procedure. What does it do? It rules out affordable housing requirements citywide where permitted, and that's over 10 units where it's permitted. Expands eligibility to 50% of the average mean income. Developers have to furnish 12% of total units at 80%, 8% at 50%, and 60%. The developer may buy out 25 of the affordable units. Now, what do we think of this?
Well, I think it's basically a good idea. When you say buy out 25, they can only buy out 25 of the affordable units?
Yes.
So they still have to put in
Yes.
some units?
Yes. But it's very complex. Let's see. Next slide. The payment of a fee in lieu provides affordable units within the affordable housing development. A buyout of up to 25 affordable units is permitted. The per unit fee, regardless of unit size or bedroom count, shall be 1.25 times the HUD Westchester County AMI for a household of 4. Very complex. Let's see what I think it means. Here's some stats. At 1.5 times the AMI family of 4, now at approximately $80,000, is $100,000. Times 25 affordable units required gives you a $2.5 million buyout. Now, is this good for the developer? Well, if the developer rents all 25 for, say, an average $3,000 a month, all units, figuring that it's probably 3.5 to 4 for, a couple of bedroom apartments, he or she, the developer, makes $900,000 the first year, $900,000 the second, $900,000 the third year. He makes money on the buyout in 3 years and charges what full market rate. It's enticing for the developer. Then the city makes money to do other things with it.
Well, the developer may be taking, depending upon the market, he may be taking a fairly big risk.
True, to buy out.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, That's what development is all about. It's the last risk-taking thing you can do, right? However, the way I see it, it's enticing to the developer, and it's a tough decision for them to make, and it would have to be figured out on the type of development.
If I was the developer, first of all, I'd like to find out what the real rental rate is, not the cost, but how many apartments are occupied of the new apartments that have been built, and calculate what the risks are of doing a buyout, because the chances are that all of the affordable units will get rented.
Mm-hmm.
You can that's like guaranteed.
But it would also, he could hopscotch the affordable units all around the building instead of relegating them to the bottom floors.
I think they do that.
Yeah, they do. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think they do that.
But now, this week we interviewed Superintendent of Schools Joseph Ricca and his Assistant Superintendent for Business, Ann Teich, and Dr. Ann Vaccaro Teich on the new school budget. And this is a preview of that budget.
We really try to put together a conservative, fiscally responsible budget that meets the needs of all of our children and continues to build on our program.
And here are the numbers. Right.
Yeah, and we're real proud of the fact that this proposed budget supports 100% of the student programming that we receive right now, everything from academics to extracurricular, arts, athletics, everything that our children have, this budget supports all of our faculty and staff members, and on top of it, stays within the tax cap while also adding to the program.
Yes, and the state raised school aid more than they ever had in the past. How is that being used?
So it's interesting, when we first received the numbers from the governor's executive budget, we were at...
Back in January, it was, what,
0.48%
and $65,000. And now, with the final state budget, there was a really large push by the legislators and School Business Officials Association to really provide small city schools, in particular, additional funding, because we weren't above 50% funding, and so they gave us 11.1% in additional aid.
Yeah, here's a slide that shows the revenues. Slide 2 should be coming up, and what I was intrigued about was you seem to be taking a real long-range approach. So if this goes away, there we are, shows the revenues and the percentage of school aid that you are now 57% funded. Now, what does this mean to the lay person?
Yeah, and you know, we're really grateful and we're thankful that our elected officials pushed so hard for us here in White Plains. Bringing us to 57% funding, I think, was really important. It's a great start in terms of bringing more White Plains dollars back to White Plains. I always, remind everyone that Albany doesn't print money, and the state aid that we receive.
No, they take ours.
Right. Is White Plains dollars coming back to support White Plains children, which is great. But we are being very conservative, and we do recognize that each year is a different budget cycle, and anything can come of it. And what we're doing is we're making sure that the expenditures related to the state aid are one-time expenditures, that they're not legacy costs associated with that. So things like being able to increase our safety and security infrastructure, looking at other areas within the district that we can make one-time purchases to be able to utilize these dollars again, get our best bang for the buck, if you will.
You can see the rest of that interview in its entirety on People to Be Heard, which should be on the White Plains Week website shortly, and you may also see it on wpcommunitymedia.org, and also Saturday night at 7 on Channel 45 Fios and Channel 76 Cablevision. So, what do you think off the top on the budget? May 21st is the vote, by the way.
Yeah, budget sounds pretty good.
Well, they make a really good case for the fact that they have not overspent.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing, because it affects us when they do that. Now, if it's voted down, they would have to take out $6.3 million out of the budget, which would basically mean about perhaps 60 persons in just straight salaries, and it's a very important thing because you can't just cut because the school district performance suffers.
Yeah.
And it does. And,
What actually happens if it's voted down?
well, they can send the budget back for another vote to see if they can't get it to pass, or they can submit a secondary budget. If it fails a second time, then they have to automatically cut back to last year's spending level.
So they can go back to last year's budget, ultimately.
Well, they're sort of mandated to do that if their second budget or replacement budget. It's you're talking about a flat out $6.3 million cut if the budget fails.
Yeah.
Going out. Now, speaking of budgets, the League of Women Voters and the Budget and Management Committee endorsed the city budget. Yes, as expected. No surprises there. And but however, I did hear in the League of Women Voters statement that they have brought back the idea that the city should revalue real estate. Which is a very bad idea. Ask anybody in Greenberg who is enduring the Greenberg reval, where commercial real estate fell in value after 25 years, and residential went up. It was an amazing result, and they had to get an installment plan for the taxes over the next 3 years for the people to get up to speed. And so it is not what is meant out to be. It is a huge advantage, and unless you really evaluate that commercial property rigidly and don't take their word for it, you could see a real disaster, because that's what happened in Greenberg. And now, let's see, there was also an intriguing pitch to involve interactive video games in malls, allow it in the business district.
Yeah.
Had some high school students address the council,
Yes.
which I thought was really great to see. And if you don't think the White Plains school system does a good job, these kids came up there and were eager. They spoke a little too fast, just a tip, kids. But
the first kid spoke really too fast,
Yeah.
and the mayor slowed him down.
Yes, but this is great to see. That's what your school district produces. And when you're thinking about the budget, just think. That is the future. And let's see, any other comments on what happened? A lot of site plans were extended.
Yeah, well, did we talk about 1133 Westchester Avenue?
We did not. Thank you.
That's, there's what, 3 buildings there?
Yes, the flats. There we are.
That's 1133 is a large office building, and there's a lot of land there also. And the council was pleased that Robert Whites had gone to the neighborhoods and discussed it with them. And the plan seems to be pretty good. And I guess they'll get started on it soon.
It's
then.
a prototype. If it works, more types of those developments will be anticipated. If it does not work, but he has a Midas touch. Most of what he has done has worked, and he's working with a very knowledgeable developer to construct it. Now, you have an intriguing encounter with a new author that you want to talk about.
Yes. This author is going to have a signing tonight at Barnes & Noble bookstore in White Plains, City Center. And the book is called Dangerfield Island. And I want to point out that Dangerfield is not like, it's D-A-I-N, Dangerfield. That's the name of the island.
Hold
and
the book up,
is
James.
by John Wazowitz. and I spoke to him on the phone at considerable length, and I have read the first 100 pages of the book.
So it's a real barn burner pot boiler.
Yes, it's
Page
a. I assume I'll finish the book this weekend. Unfortunately, most of you who hear the show, the signing will have taken place by the time you see it, but the book is available at Barnes & Noble, and it is worth getting. Trust me.
What is different about this book?
Well, first of all, it's very fast reading. There's a lot of chapters, and the chapters...
Unlike the backup material.
What?
Unlike the back material. It's fast reading. Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
And I mean, I really enjoyed what I've read so far. It's very entertaining, very interesting, and I highly recommend just getting it. It's in a paperback edition, and it's really good.
Now you read all over the lot, from biographies to Trump exposés, and we haven't seen the last of those, friends. And now, what do you read for?
Well, in the past, I've read mostly nonfiction. Lately, I've been reading a lot of fiction. And I would say that I read between 20 and 50 books a year, which is not a lot.
No, it is a lot.
Well,
That's one a week. You're a fast reader.
not really. I don't read that fast. I don't read. I definitely am not reading one a week. It's more like, 20 to 30 books a year.
But the books you read, many are really dense, but you still knock them off at an astounding rate. That's a real talent. In fact, that is one of my problems. I read slowly.
Well, one of the other authors...
But carefully.
I try not to read more than one book at a time, but one of the authors I'm reading now is Greg Iles, who has been on the bestseller list with Cemetery Road. That's the book I'm reading at the same time as I'm reading this, and they're both fast reads.
Well, right now we're heading into another dicey weekend. However, last week I had to grill out, and this is what it looked like. Look at that. Does that make you itchy to fire up the charcoal, folks? Some steaks on open fire. Started with a stove-top starter. This gives you a great fire. And then shrimp and all that. Man, just pounce on it, man. In fact, we were taping on Friday mornings, and it's time for lunch, so we're looking forward to that. John Bailey, Jim Benerofe for White Plains Week, and Peter Katz, good night.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.